And, this topic has had me thinking about the acceptance that we read in page 417 from the Big Book. And it says, the situation is exactly as it should be at this moment. And then it says, nothing, absolutely nothing happens in God's world by mistake. Now, how many of us have heard that and thinking, that can't be true? Look at what's going on in the world. How could it not be my mistake that this awful thing happened and that awful thing happened? And the only way I've been able to square that with myself is that in man's world, the world we create here in man's world, awful things do happen. And they usually happen because of the things that in recovery we're trying to not let drive the bus of our lives, which I call, ego, easing God out. So the awful things in the world typically happen because someone's operating on fear, dishonesty, selfishness, or resentment, which are the very things that we're doing, reviewing for ourselves in the 10th step. We're trying not to be a force of violence and negativity in the world, but it doesn't mean that we can control other people's egos that make awful things happen, or just accidents. That's kind of man's world. And I think the spiritual, the psychic change, the spiritual awakening that we have in this program, for me personally, helps me see that God's world is a place that I'm experiencing here because you guys are sharing love and sending love, and we're all trying not to operate on the ego. We're trying to be as close to God's will as possible. And that, the love that I get from my sponsor and the love that I experience with my sponsees, we can tell when we're kind of aligned with God's world, which is this more spiritual realm, and we really don't have any control except over ourselves on what happens out there when people are driven by the ego. So that's all. I've been thinking about this a lot, and this is a really good topic because quite often when I hear absolutely nothing happens in God's world by mistake, I think, how could that be? And yet I know that it wasn't a mistake that I hit a bottom with my alcoholism and had all those divorces and eventually got into recovery. A god-awful thing that was driven by my ego ended up to be a good thing in God's world, a portal into spiritual growth. So I just wanted to say that I guess in these tough times, as much spiritual practice as we can force into our minds and hearts, and this meeting itself is a spiritual practice because we're sharing love and care and comfort with one another, and I can feel that God's love is here too. So thank you.